Behind me looms the famous Wartburg Castle. Below me is the town of Eisenach. When Martin Luther was a student in Eisenach, he would have seen this grand 11th century castle perched atop the hill, and he may have even ventured up here from time to time. Luther was a resident at Wartburg from May 1521 all the way through to March 1522. You remember what happened in April 1521. Luther made his famous "Here I Stand" speech and was condemned as a heretic at the Diet, or the Diet, at Worms. And as he left, he made his way back to Wittenberg, and that's when Prince Frederick the Wise arranged for him to be kidnapped and be brought to Wartburg, more for his own protection than for anything else. And while he was here, he had an assumed identity. He grew a beard and he disguised himself, and he became known as Junker George, meaning Knight George. And at Wartburg, Luther felt extremely isolated. In fact, at one point he wrote, "I am writing to you from my Isle of Patmos." And he went through times of great depression and loneliness while he was here. There are a number of legends associated with Luther and his times here. One concerns the famous inkwell experience. The idea behind it was that the devil was so tormenting Luther that he materialized in Luther's room, and Luther grabbed an inkwell off his desk and he hurled it at the wall, leaving an ink spot behind. And for generations after generations, people have been searching for the signs of the remaining stains on the wall. But he also worked hard while he was here at Wartburg. During that time, Luther translated the Greek New Testament into the German language. And this was really a remarkable accomplishment. Luther began the effort in December 1521, and by the time he left in March 1522, he had finished the entire New Testament. By September of that same year, the German New Testament was ready for publication. It's often referred to as the September Testament. It's one of the most important things to come from Luther's pen, and it shaped the entire Reformation in Germany. Luther didn't stay cooped up in the castle the entire time that he was here. He would often sneak out and go down into Eisenach occasionally. There's even a path called the Junker George Trail that leads up and down the mountain. And once in a while, when Luther would come down, he would go into a pub and he would strike up a conversation. And at one particular time, he did this with a couple of students from Switzerland, and they were eager to talk about Luther. Everyone was talking about Luther, and they asked him, "Do you know where Martin Luther is?" And Junker George Luther said to them, "Well, I know for certain that he's not in Wittenberg." And then he said, "What is all the talk about this man Luther?" And they said, well, some of the bishops are calling him a great heretic." And Luther's response, which was typical Luther, said, "Well, they're all papists." In other words, they all must come from the Catholic Church. As Junker George got up to leave, the Swiss students saw his Hebrew Bible, and they knew this was no knight that they were talking to. They realized that they had been talking to Martin Luther himself. He was right in front of them, right there in Eisenach.